It is absolutely gorgeous today. I'm feeling very breezy as well. I wasn't actually planning on coming for a walk today. I was actually going to go to the RHS Chelsea Flower Show, but it is such a beautiful day, I decided against it last minute. I thought I'd rather be out in real nature than looking around some curated nature. So I'm going to have a little walk around these woodlands and see what's around. These big bunches of blueberries are Mahonia berries, and these are edible. They are a little bit astringent, but you can add sugar or honey or whatever sweetener you like to them, and they're really quite nice. I really like to use them just in jams and syrups, but I'm sure there are much more creative uses for them for proper foodies or chefs. But yeah, they're really, really cool, and they grow in abundance. You can get these big bunches of them, and they're pretty unmistakable. There's nothing else that really looks like it at this time of year that grows in these big bunches, and they've got these really distinctive holly-shaped leaves as well. So yeah, they're really, really cool. In the late winter, early springtime, they've got these long spikes of yellow flowers that are edible as well, and they've got a really delicious, sort of like a lemony sherbet sort of flavour. And I made some Mahonia flower sweets earlier on in the year with those, so I'll link that short above if I remember when I get home. But yeah, Mahonia berries, really, really cool plant, and yeah, I'll be harvesting some of these in a couple of weeks' time, I think. I'm on a salt marsh estuary now, and down here next to the woods plantain is scurvy grass or spoonwort, and this is quite popular because it was commonly eaten as a cure for scurvy or as a treatment for scurvy, and that's because it's quite high in vitamin C. Not necessarily much more than many other wild plants, but because scurvy grass grows next to the coast or in salt marshes next to rivers, it's quite accessible to sailors. So it was gathered for treating scurvy. I've come back to this little patch of bee orchids that I found last night on my walk home, and they are absolutely stunning, but I can see that a couple of them have already been run over. I can see a bike track through, and a couple of them are flattened, which is a shame because, well, they are in the middle of two pathways, and this little stretch is very, very small and it's easily trodden down. So I'm actually very, very surprised that these are even flourishing right here. Bee orchids do grow over in the wildflower meadow over in Ranscombe Reserve, which is probably like maybe a mile and a I'm right next to the train track. Ranscombe Reserve Farm, where the wildflower meadow is maybe around a mile and a half from here, but the seeds are absolutely minuscule and they are windblown, so they can travel quite far. And what's really, really cool about bee orchids is that they actually require certain types of soil fungi for their seeds to be able to germinate. Their seeds are so small that they have zero food reserves, and they actually rely on the energy that the soil fungi gives them. So bee orchids don't just rely on the soil fungi for their seeds to germinate, they also rely on that extra little energy boost for their first leaf to come through until they're able to photosynthesize. Bee orchids are a really rad example of the coevolution between plants and pollinators. Not only have they evolved to look just like a bee sitting on a flower, but they also emit a scent that resembles a female solitary bee. And bee orchids are so well able to mimic female bees that male bees actually fly over to try and mate with them, but of course just end up pollinating a flower. How gorgeous are they? This one's got a couple of flower heads on it, and then 1, 2, 3 more to come as well. They're really, really flourishing down here. This is one of my favourite wild herbs, and this is marjoram, the UK's version of oregano. And it smells absolutely delightful, and it grows all along this railway at the edges of this little path here. But I'm going to take a sprig with me just to have a little sniff as I walk around. You hear the train's about to go past. These little guys down here don't seem to mind too much though. I'm super stoked to see these actually because I haven't seen them in a long, long time. This is the small blue, and it's the UK's smallest butterfly. I used to see this as a kid all the time when I lived down here in Kent, but they predominantly love taut grasslands, and because Sheffield's very acidic, you never ever see them up there. So yeah, I'm really, really stoked to see these, and it's really funny because when I was little, I actually used to think that butterflies were called butterflies because most of them, all the ones that I tend to see anyway when I was little, mate butt to butt like this, and yeah, I just used to think that was why they were called butterflies. Down here we've got common bugle, and this is a plant that really loves damp deciduous woodland. It grows on long runners, so it can form dense clusters like you can see here. And a common name for bugle is carpenter's weed because it can help to stem bleeding and help with bruises and minor wounds. This plant is edible. You can eat the leaves, you can eat the stems, and you can eat the flowers as well. It is a member of the mint family, and it's got this hairy square stem and these opposite leaves as well, and these really, really lovely sort of dusky blue flowers to them. The flowers can sometimes be white and sometimes be pink as well, though it's a little less common than these quite bright blue flowers. Have you ever smelt a broad bean flower? It's one of the most delicious smells. It smells similar to sweet pea. And I grow them in my garden, and I love to stick my face in the broad beans. But here there's a whole field of broad beans, and they're all in flower, and this lane smells heavenly. God, this time of year when the air's warm and there's a light breeze, everything just smells amazing. I've just found a very, very pretty flower down here. And this plant is on the red data list. Its conservation status is listed as vulnerable. And this is the narrow-leaved helleborine. It kind of looks like little tulip-shaped flowers, but the inside have got beautiful sort of lobed lips. And yeah, it's a really pretty wildflower. And it's just growing here in this little field underneath this beach. I just thought I spied one tiny little cookie flower down here, but then my eyes adjusted and I ended up seeing quite a few. There's some more over there as well. Cookie flower is a delicious little plant, bit of a mustardy sort of flavour, bit of spice to it. It's really, really delicious. When it's young, it has basal rosettes of quite rounded pinnate leaves, but as it gets older, the leaves become elongated and look a little bit like rocket. So I've shown you the coltsfoot flower in a couple of my videos, and these are the leaves. So you can see they get quite big actually. Could be mistaken for burdock, I guess. Oh, my skirt is blowing in the wind. Could be mistaken for burdock, I guess. But they've got this kind of like cobwebby sort of coating on the top that can be rubbed off, and underneath it's very, very cobwebby, but this can't really be rubbed off. This is quite dense. I'll link my coltsfoot short above or in the description if you want to learn more about coltsfoot and its uses, or historic uses. It doesn't really get used too much anymore. I'm getting hungry, and this looks like a nice spot for lunch. So my trail snacks for today, got a couple of boiled eggs, some granola or flapjack, and then I've got yesterday's popcorn from the baby shower I went to yesterday, and also an apple. Loads and loads of teasels down here, and I'm super gutted this year because it is the first year since 2017 where I haven't had a self-seeded teasel plant pop up in my garden. And I'm gutted just because they're such fascinating little things. They're semi-carnivorous plants, and they collect pools of water in their leaf bracts here, and insects fall in. And unlike most perennial carnivorous plants that tend to grow in quite nutrient-poor boggy soils, teasels grow in quite dry areas, and it's been shown that they don't use the insects to increase their biomass like most carnivorous plants. They actually use it to help with their seed production, and it's been shown that teasels that have had insects fall into their pools of water actually increase their seed production by around 30% than those that had their leaf cut. It's just a super cool way of them gaining nitrogen in order to help with their seed production. And teasel has been used as a medicine as well. The teasel root, alongside the root of Japanese knotweed, has been used for Lyme disease medicine. So it's just a really cool plant all around, and definitely one of my favourites to have in the garden. So yeah, I'm super gutted that there's not going to be any this year. I am super stoked to find this because it's a little bit early, but I've noticed quite a few of the flowers are flowering a little bit earlier down here. But this over here is meadow clary, and this is one of the UK's rarest plants. It's only found in around 21, 22 sites in the UK, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's a stunning plant. It's got vibrant blue, purpley sort of flowers on really long spikes. And there's one flower spike in flower. One's just gone to seed next to it, or trying to go to seed, hopefully, fingers crossed. And I can't see any more, but last year there was loads and loads of spikes. So I'm hoping that it keep flowering and set seed. It's currently in a grazing field. So some sites with rare flowers, they cage them, and actually it helps in the short term, but long term it messes up the natural ecosystem. So lots of plants, including orchids and these wildflowers, they actually need grazing. They actually need animals to come around and, you know, graze down some of the competing grasses and snuffle around, push the seeds into the soil and that sort of thing. So when they're caged, that can't happen. So I think lots of wildflower sites now are like this, where they kind of keep a fence up from the public, from the footpaths, stop any trampling, but they leave it open for grazing, so animals can come in and do their thing. It's pretty cool. So meadow clary is a type of salvia, Salvia pratensis, and like most salvias, it is medicinal, and it was once used as an eye wash. The name clary comes from clear eye, and it was also used to help sore throats, coughs and colds, and also as a toothpaste as well. So it's a pretty interesting little plant, and I'm really stoked to see it in flower today. Look what we have here then. So this is poison hemlock, one of the most toxic plants on the entire planet, and it grows all over the UK, and it does look quite similar to cow parsley, but the identifying feature really, well, you need to know a few. One of the main ones is this mottled stem. It's got kind of like menacing looking blood splats all up the stem, and you will never ever see that on cow parsley. The stem is also very, very smooth, whereas on cow parsley it's got little tiny hairs and it's got grooves in it as well. The leaves though do look almost identical, and the flower buds as well do look similar, so it is a plant you need to watch out for, and that's why we don't recommend that you forage for cow parsley if you're a beginner, because it is very, very easy to get something like poison hemlock mixed up. Stoked to find this one. This is rough chervil, another toxic member of the Apiaceae family, and you can see this blotchy stem here. It does look quite similar to poison hemlock, but can you see all of these bristly hairs? And remember how I said that poison hemlock has a very smooth round stem. Rough chervil has got a round blotchy stem, but it's got bristly hairs on it, and the leaves are also hairy. You can see these little tiny hairs on the top and on the underside, and this is poisonous, so do not get this confused with cow parsley, but you shouldn't be harvesting any stems that you can see red blotching on anyway, so you shouldn't get this confused with cow parsley. But as I say, cow parsley is not a plant for beginners, so do not go forage for that if you're unsure on the Apiaceae family. Whoa, look at all of these webs. They look kind of creepy, don't they? This is the webs from the ermine caterpillar, and there's several species of ermine caterpillar, and I'm not a bugologist or an entomologist either. But I do know plants pretty well, and these are on a spindle bush, so I'm hazarding a guess that this is the spindle ermine caterpillar, and these guys will end up stripping this tree. They'll eat all of the leaves, but then the caterpillars end up becoming food for bats and birds, so it is all a lovely cycle, and stoked to see this because it's not something that I see too often. But yeah, kind of creepy though, isn't it? I've got lots and lots of burdock down here, big old burdock leaves. Root of this is awesome for making drinks, dandelion burdock. But also, next to it, it's one of my favourite herbs, mugwort. and it's traditionally used as a smoking herb to promote lucid dreaming. So you smoke it before bed, and it's supposed to enhance your dreams and make your dreams very, very vivid. But it is part of the Artemisia family, Artemisia vulgaris. Sorry, trains again. But yeah, this is Artemisia vulgaris, and it is related to wormwood. But whilst you don't generally use wormwood unless you're prescribed it medicinally, mugwort can be used as a tea as well, quite a relaxing tea. Lavender, chamomile and mugwort tea will send you to sleep in no time as well. It's quite easily identifiable and distinguishable from wormwood because the underside of the leaves are silver, whereas on wormwood it's mostly silver, both top and bottom, but the leaves are quite dark green on the top and like a silvery colour at the bottom. And soon it will send up its flower heads, and these are the stems from last year's still hanging on, and all of the cleavers creeping up, using it as a support system. You shouldn't use mugwort if you're pregnant because it has been known to induce abortions, and the Romans actually used mugwort leaves to put in their shoes to ward off cramps and tiredness. This pretty white flower has been eaten in some countries, but we don't tend to eat this here. It's known to contain toxins. It's especially high in saponins, the roots, so traditionally those were actually broken down, ground down and boiled and made into a soap. So it's a pretty cool plant for bushcraft if you find this in abundance and need a bit of soap, but not really one for eating. Pretty though. Right, change of clothes because it's starting to get windy now. The elderflower is fully in bloom down in Kent, and in Sheffield it's only just starting to open up. But in Kent, all of the hedgerows just smell absolutely incredible. The countryside is full of it at the minute, and every single hedgerow is just full of these frothy, creamy white flowers, and it just smells gorgeous. Such a lovely time of year. And elderflower is obviously edible, though not as potent. It has still got many of the antioxidants and bioactive compounds as what the elderberries do, so it can help to reduce blood sugar, strengthen the immune system, and it's really, really great at coughs and colds. My favourite thing to use it for though is as a yeast starter, as a wild yeast starter. It's absolutely full of wild yeast, and you can use that to make a starter for your ferments, for your cordials. So I actually like to pre-make the starter with elderflower before I actually make the elderflower champagne. Flowers, water and some sugar, and let that ferment for a few days before adding it to my cordial, and then it's just a much higher success rate of it actually fermenting. But it's a really beautiful plant, elderflower, and if you haven't gathered it yet then please do, because it is gorgeous. And the best way to identify it is to make sure that it's growing from a tree or a shrub. Never ever pick the florets that are growing from the ground, because that's likely one of the Apiaceae families and it could very well be something poisonous. That family does contain some of the most toxic plants on the planet, so do make sure you're gathering your creamy white florets from a tree or a shrub, and I'll just show you a close-up of the leaves as well. And the leaves actually can be used to make a really good salve, so they're not edible, the leaves. Actually every other part of the elder is toxic, so the leaves are toxic, and actually the berries raw are toxic as well, but the flowers are edible raw. But the leaves are actually useful to make a salve with. So these are the leaves of the elder tree. They've got these pinnate leaves that are serrated and in opposite pairs with a single terminal leaflet just at the end there. And these flowers have got creamy white petals with yellowy stamens, very, very pale yellow stamens. And the flowers are made up of 5 white petals with 5 pretty long stamens, like you can see there. Very, very cute little flowers, and really great garnish just in your cocktails and on your salads and on your desserts. Really beautiful, infused into milk, infused into panna cottas, infused into creams and custards. Really, really delicious. Kent is known for its orchards and its vineyards. It's a well-known fact that all the best fruit Comes from Kent. I've just found some chicken of the woods and I'm so stoked because it's quite large, yet it's still very, very tender. And I haven't got my knife on me, so I'm just going to pull off pieces because it really is that tender. There we go. Look how bright yellow it is. Sulphur yellow underneath. This is such a gorgeous mushroom, and it's called chicken of the woods because it is one of the best substitutes for chicken that you'll find in the woods. It grows on old oak and beech and sweet chestnut trees. This one here is a sweet chestnut, and yeah, it's quite a good little size here. I've seen a few chicken of the woods around this woods last year, so I was quite hopeful that I'd find one. It's got a very lovely mushroomy smell, and underneath it's got these very sulphurous yellow pores, and they're actually very, very hard to see. They're very minute pores, and the slugs have already had a bit of a field day with the underneath of this, so I think I have caught it at just the right time. But I'm really stoked with this little haul. I'm going to have another little walk around this woods to see if there's anything else nearby just before the sun goes down because it's starting to set behind me. But stoked.